Welcome on the Cosmic Atom. The greatest deception the establishment ever played was persuading you that surviving was sufficient. But you didn't merely emerge from the pandemonium with skinned knees and uplifting remarks. You studied the architecture, identified the flaws, and then walked out not just alive, but undefeated and untouchable. Let's be clear, they wanted to survive. Compliance was the reward. But power, mastery, calm, and revolt disguised as strategy. That was your eventual goal. This is a little-known fact. According to behavioral economics, more than 90% of people's choices are based on habit rather than purpose. As a result, the majority are locked in cycles that someone else created. You noticed the loop and then broke the code. And this isn't your average. You made it a motivational talk. This is a tribute to the old you, the one who believed the system was too large to repair, too holy to be deceived. Now you're the unexpected story twist. Buckle up, for this is not a survival tale. This is a lesson in how to hack the matrix with elegance, guts, and a hint of snark. Number 1, you quit playing defense and created your own game board. You quit playing defense and began building your own game board. That alters everything. Most individuals spend their whole lives ducking gunfire. The system fires at them. Lousy employers break promises. Student loans. Individuality is punished by social conventions, and no one acknowledges to the existence of unwritten ceilings. They hustle. They adapt. They remain thankful. However, you saw through it and saw that playing defense is only another kind of control. When you're always reacting, you're not producing. You're merely living within a labyrinth that someone else created. So you took a silent choice. Stop running. Stop constructing. You realized the game wasn't only unfair, it was rigged. Instead of appealing for better circumstances, you began devising your own strategy while others continued to seek for permission. You went off script. You discovered new paths and asked various questions. You did not wait for the door to open. You made your own entrance when no one was watching. People don't speak about how frightening it is or how lonely it feels at first. Nobody offers you a standing ovation for leaving safety to face uncertainty. They call it reckless. They term it unrealistic. But deep down, you understood what was unrealistic. Squandering your one life, attempting to win a game whose rules were never intended for you to win. You did not desire a trophy. You want freedom. That's what makes this unique. You didn't just avoid the traps. You stopped adopting the floor plan completely. You forged your own way without requiring approval. You choose pain over obedience, clarity over comfort, and strategy over struggle. And now you aren't simply surviving. You've reached the point when the system can no longer anticipate your behavior. That is the power they do not teach. That's something they never expected. You outgrown the game because you began playing your own, and no one could touch you there. Number 2, you mastered the system language and spoke it fluently using subversion. You learned the system language and applied it precisely. This is where the majority of individuals make mistakes. They either mindlessly accept the rules or strive to destroy everything with wrath and disobedience. But you were wiser than that. You didn't battle it straight on because you knew the system was expecting strong pushback. It's intended to absorb noise. What it cannot tolerate is someone who learns its protocols, fits in, and then quietly rewires everything from the inside out. You paid attention. You've observed how success is packaged, how power is distributed, and how individuals climb not just because of skill, but also because they know who to talk to, how to dress it up, when to play little and when to act large. You didn't judge it, you studied it. You worked out how to play the character effectively enough to obtain access, rather than becoming it. You understood when to leave meetings, even if you disagreed, when to speak their language, acquire trust, and when to keep your genuine thoughts to yourself until it was time to set up. You navigate around rooms as if they were mirrors. People saw what they wanted to see, but you were collecting data, interpreting power dynamics, and recording where actual choices were made, not where they said they were. That is how you remained. 2 steps forward, not by yelling or pleading, but by comprehending the inner workings of the same object created to confine you. And when the time arrived, you did not knock on the door. You owned the building. The system didn't see it coming because it never imagined someone becoming proficient in its language and then using it against itself. That's not just intellect, it's grace, and you outsmarted it without raising your voice. Number 3, you took advantage of a situation they never expected you to comprehend. You took advantage of a situation they never expected you to comprehend. That is the part they don't speak about. How much of the system operates on the premise that you will never really understand how it works? They rely on your distraction. They conceal power in plain sight, hidden under jargon, red tape, and opaque rules that only insiders are taught. But you didn't just endure the mayhem. You stared directly at the building. You learned where the true levers are, the type that was never included in a manual. They expected you to play the obvious game, the one with employment titles, promotions, and appropriate networking activities. But you focused on what was not being spoken. You saw how choices were truly made. You recognized who had genuine influence and who had flashy titles but little pull. You watched how access, rather than work, pushed the needle, and you did not protest. You used it. You saw through the attractive packaging. You understand how money moves, how connections are currency, and how stillness in some places is a strategy rather than a weakness. You see the loopholes, which were designed to protect the individuals who devised the system. Instead of being resentful about them, you use them to your advantage, not by cheating, but by comprehending what they believed you would never grasp. And this is what made you dangerous. You weren't loud, but you were accurate. You discovered flaws in their reasoning, blind spots in their approach, and areas where they were overconfident that you'd never notice. And when the time came, you didn't reveal your intentions. You just made it. You stepped through doors that were never supposed to open for you. Not because they allowed you in, but because you discovered the back path that they failed to defend. They assumed you were just surviving. They didn't understand you were researching every hurdle. They hurled it. You become part of your blueprint. And when they glanced up, it was too late. You were already ahead. Number 4, you understand that the system is a puzzle, not a jail. You understand that the system is a puzzle, not a jail. That difference in thinking altered everything. Most individuals go through life following the rules and treating difficulties like brick walls rather than changeable parts. They believe what they are told, that there's a road that requires you to remain in your lane and earn your turn. If you're patient and kind enough, but you notice something odd, you did not accept the system at face value. You questioned it, probed at it, and observed how it moved. And the further you examined, the less it appeared like a trap and more like a game. The fact is that the majority of the barriers that individuals face are fabricated. They are social agreements, unseen barriers constructed of tradition, fear, and control. People don't challenge them because they are instructed not to. But you did. You asked why. This route. Who determined this? What happens if I do not follow the script? And every time you inquired, you received the same response. Someone made this up so you could undo it. You did not spend time becoming offended. You became inquisitive. You began searching for patterns where others saw limitations. You saw architecture where others saw ceilings. You searched for pressure points. It was not about breaking things. It was about reordering things, understanding how things are interconnected, so you could disconnect what didn't work for you and recreate what did. That is the distinction between folks who remain stuck and those who progress. The stuck ones take the structure personally. The wise ones address it as a design issue. You didn't merely want out. You wanted to get through. So you plotted it as a strategist, not a victim. You learned how to change your position, your tail, and your timing without faking it, but by moving strategically. And you're not simply out. You're reached a new level. The individuals who are still trapped believe you have fled. But what they don't realize is that you never escaped anything. You've decrypted it. And once you recognize the system was merely a puzzle, you stop being terrified of it because puzzles are solvable. And you were never trapped inside. You were only waiting to flip the board. Number 5, you have mastered the technique of strategic invisibility. You have mastered the technique of strategic invisibility. While everyone else was striving to be seen, heard, and validated, you learned the value of restraint. You didn't need the spotlight to feel authentic. You recognized that in certain situations, being prominent too early does not give you power. This makes you a target. So you moved with goal, not ego. You chose quiet when others chose noise, not because you had nothing to say, but because you were already 5 steps ahead and did not need the applause to continue. People often mistake visibility with progress. They believe that having the loudest voice in the room implies they're winning. You knew better. You learned the main movements occurred behind closed doors, in quiet times, in choices taken before the announcement. So you remained quiet, but not idle. You examined the players. You observed the patterns. You've accumulated your leverage. You understood when to talk, when to wait, and when to withdraw completely. That is not passivity. It's about control. It requires discipline to keep your ideas till they can't be ignored. Allowing someone else to take credit requires fortitude. If it means you can move without being monitored, you are not concealing. You are positioning. You didn't spend your time defending your value to individuals who weren't even equipped to see it. And when the moment came, you didn't ask for room. You came in with the outcomes already secured. This is why they were taken off surprise. They were preoccupied, underestimating your quietness and believing you were falling behind. What they did not see was that you were constructing without authority, winning without announcing, mastering your surroundings, until their only choice was to notice. The majority of individuals are unaware that strategic invisibility exists. It demands clarity, confidence, and patience. However, once you master it, you stop chasing chances and begin directing results. That is not simply genius. That is power. Quiet, thoughtful, and undeniably powerful. Number 6, you refuse to be their lone success story. You refuse to be their lone success story. They wanted you to go just far enough to establish the system works without questioning who constructed it, who profits from it, and why. Many people do not survive. You noticed it early on. The silent urge to smile despite the difficulty of accepting praise cloaked in condescension. To become a symbol rather than a fully developed, complex, and strong human person. You are not having it, but like a good comeback tale, as long as it finishes with you feeling appreciative, grateful for crumbs, representation, and access to places you should have owned from the start. However, you were not interested in becoming their feel-good exception. You weren't ascending the ladder only to boost their diversity statistics or to play the part of the inspirational achiever. You wanted more. You wanted the truth. You wanted to change. You saw how eager they were to praise your perseverance, yet how silent they were when you opposed the rules. You saw how your input was valued in a panel discussion, but dismissed in a decision-making setting. And you realized something. They were more comfortable with your tale than with your authority. That's why you stopped perpetuating the story. You did not need to be there. For example, you needed to be there. Disruption. You climbed, but on your own terms. You did not tidy up your edges to match the frame. You brought your whole self to the table. History, fury, knowledge, and ambition. You did not conceal your narrative, but you refused to have it repackaged as a nice, marketable tale of triumph. You weren't here to help them feel better. You were here to change the whole landscape. Being a token would have been simple. Safe clapped. However, you're not interested in playing tiny to make the system seem huge. You come to dispel the illusion, and you're no longer just a character in the tale. They are rewriting it because of you. Number 7. You saw that survival alone is the system's trap. You saw that survival alone is the system's trap. The message is subtle yet consistent. Be glad that you're here. Be silent. Do not ask for too much. It's presented as humility, reality, and maturity. But you recognized it for what it really is. Control. The system wants you to believe that survival is the ultimate goal, so you'll never ask for more. As a result, you never push beyond the ceiling. They silently placed over your head. You could hear it in the compliments, which had genuine limitations. You're quite resilient. You have come so far. You should be proud. But their remarks included a warning. Don't go too ambitious. Don't aspire higher. Stay in the box we let you escape into. And maybe, for a time, surviving seemed like enough. Making it out was difficult. Staying afloat required everything. However, you eventually recognized that surviving a dysfunctional system is not the same as independence. It's simply about endurance. Living is not the same as enduring. So you quit limiting your aspirations to accommodate their comfort. You stopped believing that simply because something is better than before, you should remain. You question the whole setup. Why are we celebrating survival as if it were the end of the line? Why is prospering seen as arrogance? Why is desiring more considered ungrateful? You refuse the silent gaslight, the one that claims ambition is hazardous. Wanting more is selfish. The request for modification is foolish. You desired more not just for yourself, but because you felt survival should not be uncommon. It should be the baseline, not the badge. So you didn't just keep your head above water. You learned to swim. The currents, reverse the tide, and construct your own dang ship. You stopped being grateful for crumbs and instead demanded room for what you really deserve. That is not entitlement. That is clarity. You are not saved by the system. You outsmarted it, and now you aren't surviving. You are responsible for your molding. You are free. Number 8, you altered the success metrics. They told you that success means ascending an already rigged ladder, measured by titles, salary, and the size of your corner office. They portrayed it as a race to complete, with checkpoints such as degrees, promotions, and acclaim from people who don't even see you. But you looked beyond that restricted perspective. You knew those measures didn't represent universal truths. They were just a systemic means of maintaining power disguised as aspiration. You redefined success on your own terms. For you, it's not about your work title or the amount of money in your bank account. It's all about freedom, the ability to make decisions without seeking permission to spend your time doing what motivates you rather than draining you. It's all about self-respect, refusing to compromise your ideals for a cash or a promotion. It's about being yourself, full, messy, and true, rather than trying to fit into a mold that wasn't designed for you. This is not a revolt for the sake of rebellion. It's called evolution. It's acknowledging that genuine success is shaped by your own development, shifting values, and desire to live a fulfilling life. It takes fortitude to get off the treadmill and define what success really means for you, not for anybody else. This is not just breaching the rules. You are developing a new vocabulary for accomplishment, one in which effect is more important than appearance, where peace of mind is prioritized before power plays, and where connection and purpose trump status. You did not reject success. You reinvented it. And in doing so, you're paving the way for those who refuse to accept anything less than a life lived on their own terms. Number 9, you're created for stillness. They laughed. Then you launched. You created stillness while others chuckled, believing you were wasting your time. They were preoccupied with achieving rapid victories, seeking praise, and creating noise to demonstrate that they were accomplishing something. But you knew something deeper. Progress is not determined by how loud you are. It is about what you quietly create while no one is looking. You did not need the spotlight or their approval. You concentrated on the job, the tiny, steady steps, and the patience to keep going while others were distracted by drama and diversions. They derided your careful attitude, describing it as sluggish or timid. But you realized they were just impatient because they couldn't see the broader picture while chasing trends and affirmation. You were setting the groundwork, developing abilities, connections, and methods that were unaffected by noise or setbacks. You put your energy where it mattered, where it accumulated and developed softly but strongly. Then came the unexpected moment. Your launch was neither loud nor showy. It was obvious. Suddenly, those calm months became the wellspring of your strength, the driving force behind your accomplishment. The same folks who laughed initially were now racing to catch up, trying to figure out how you pulled it off without a fuss. Your quiet was not an absence. It was a preparation. Your invisibility was not a weakness. It was a strategy. You demonstrated that true power does not come from being the loudest in the room, but from being the one who is prepared when it counts most. And now your silence is their echo. Because once you've established a firm foundation in quiet, every accomplishment you claim reverberates long after the clamor fades. Number 10, you become something the system cannot control or imitate. You become something the system cannot control or imitate. They have a playbook for everything. How to train staff, how to promote the appropriate individuals, how to recreate success by following previously successful patterns. However, you did not fit any of those molds. You combined uniqueness and strategy in unexpected ways. You didn't just learn the rules. You rebuilt the playbook in real time, introducing maneuvers no one else had considered. What you bring to the table cannot be taught via a training manual. Your unpredictable nature stems from a unique combination of intelligence, instinct, and calculated risk. And that is precisely why you are untouchable. You're not a product that can be mass-produced or slotted into a role to meet a quota. You're a force they can't match since they don't grasp how you think or perceive the system's flaws. They aim to mold individuals into forms. You design the system around yourself. That level of creativity is powerful. This implies you're not susceptible to their scripts or expectations. You do not just react to obstacles. You foresee and deconstruct them before they occur. When they attempt to mimic your movements, it's too late. You've already moved on, innovated again, and advanced beyond their grasp. They may create legions of followers and play it safe. But you stand out because you refuse to be predictable. You demonstrate that genuine control is not about complying. It's about controlling your own rules and vision. You become an exception. They can't replicate the wild card that they can't control. That allows you to not just survive the system, but also own it in a manner that no one else can. Number 11, you confront the mirror, not just the opponent. Outsmarting the system entails more than just negotiating outward barriers. It begins much closer to home, within your own thoughts. The most difficult opponent you fought was not the system itself, but the voice inside that questioned your value, whispering that you didn't belong or warning you to remain tiny in order to escape failure or rejection. The internal saboteur is subtle and persistent, and most individuals never learn to combat it. But you didn't back away. You stared it directly in the eye. You understood that no outward win would matter if you remained stuck in self-doubt. You recognized that dread and imposter syndrome are not symptoms of weakness. They are indications to become sharper and more purposeful. So you investigated those voices, determined where they originated from, and refused to let them rule the show. You treated your intellect like the system, a problem to solve, a difficulty to overcome. It was not easy. You had to rewrite long-held beliefs about your identity and what you deserved. You have to be patient with yourself when old misgivings resurfaced. You devised techniques to silence fear, such as rigorous preparation, silent affirmations, or the discipline to continue turning up even when the voice was loudest. By addressing yourself first, you established a solid foundation that no external system could shake. The system may throw barriers at you. However, your inner confidence was a stronghold. When the world questioned you, you did not crumble. You adapted. You understood your own thinking better than anybody else, and you refused to let it become your adversary. That's why you didn't just endure the system. You conquered yourself first. Outsmarting the system means winning the internal war so that nothing outside could break you. And it makes all the difference. Number 12, you weaponize the system's own tools. You weaponize the system's own tools. Instead of attempting to destroy the gadget from the outside or smashing it to pieces, you used a more intelligent approach. You reverse engineered it. You investigated how it functioned, what it valued, and what it rewarded. You did not explicitly reject the system's rules. You learned to employ its weaponry more effectively than those who developed it. Networking was more than simply small conversation. It became a strategic map of influence. Credentials were not simply paper. They become keys to doors that you never intended to open. You watched how people treat titles and credentials as if they were magical badges. So you acquired it not for the prestige, but to get the respect and access they demanded. You mastered the code of unstated norms, knowing when to lean in and when to back off, and how to form alliances that moved the power balance in your favor. You did not allow these tools control you. You had power over them. It was never about playing the game on their terms. It was about manipulating the game to your advantage. You used the system's logic against itself, transforming its stated benefits into yours. The machine assumed it could form you, but you turned around and molded it instead. You used the system's built-in processes to achieve your independence, vision, and success. You become untouchable by mastering the system's tools while remaining true to yourself. You weren't just surviving within the machine. You were running some of it. And since you employed their weapons in a novel way, they couldn't foresee your actions or reproduce your success. You took their rules, flipped them, and went away with the winning hand. Number 13, you let go of approval and you get genuine power. When you stopped wanting approval, everything changed. Approval is the system's leash. It binds you, forcing you to dance to someone else's song, seeking approval rather than your own truth. Most individuals are unaware of how profoundly approbation grips them, twisting their judgments, dulling their voice, and draining their vitality. But you saw through it. You realized that seeking confirmation is not confidence, it is dependence. You did not just cease asking for permission. You stopped caring whether others liked what you did or who you were. That is where true power begins, when you claim your value forcefully and unashamedly, rather than having it given to you by others. You stopped reducing yourself to match the system's definitions of success and likability. You had stopped waiting for a nod, a grin, or a slap on the back. You stopped performing for approval and began behaving on purpose. That freedom worried the system because it had lost control over you. You became unpredictable. You couldn't be influenced by empty praise or subtle censure since your worth was no longer in doubt. It was sturdy, self-sufficient, and autonomous. Without the leash of approbation, you moved with certainty and clarity, which made you dangerous. Burning the leash indicates that you have recovered your time, energy, and vision. You stopped modifying yourself to avoid offending others or to meet expectations. Instead, you seemed raw, authentic, and forceful. You stopped requesting permission and began dominating space. When you did this, the system had no option but to recognize that you were no longer playing the game. You were modifying it. Number 14. You knew legacy was more important than labels. You knew legacy was more important than labels. Others were preoccupied with pursuing titles, status symbols, or brief moments of recognition. You concentrated on something deeper and more lasting. You recognized that a title is but a phrase, a transient insignia that changes with the wind. However, legacy is a force that continues to exist after you. Long after you are gone, you are not concerned in ephemeral affirmation or surface-level achievement. You are creating something authentic, something that would last despite fleeting trends, noise, and hoopla. You look beyond yourself, beyond the immediate victory, and consider the influence your actions would have on those who followed you. You wanted to break down the molds that had confined generations before you and rewrite the blueprint to accommodate a broader, more real spectrum of tales and aspirations. This entailed making difficult and unpopular decisions. It meant putting content ahead of flash fidelity, convenience, and depth ahead of picture. Legacy does not mean making the system resemble you. It is about making the system better and more transparent. You are not happy to be just another label on a crowded shelf. You wanted to be the one to transform the appearance of the shelf, to open up new possibilities for everyone. That's why you never focused on short-term victories or meaningless titles. It focused on long-term reform that has a lasting impact. Knowing this made you invincible, since legacy requires vision, fortitude, and unwavering determination. It requires you to play a new game, one in which your decisions affect not just you, but everyone who follows you. You are not just surviving the system. You are reshaping it, and that transition is the true success. They assumed you were simply another participant in the game, but you were really studying the rules in order to rewrite them. You were not here to be tolerated, tokenized, or domesticated. You did not escape the system. You deciphered it, outwitted it, converted its own tools into weapons, and transformed its borders into launch pads while others waited to be selected. You selected yourself, while others stuck to stolen notions of success. You created it discreetly, deliberately, and persistently. You confronted the aspects of yourself that the system thought you'd ignore. Uncertainty, fear, and a need for more, and converted them into fuel. You stopped asking for permission, approval, and acclaim. You proceeded in quiet with purpose, and your presence shouted louder than they could have imagined. And now you are the blueprint they didn't prepare for, but can't avoid. This was not luck. This was not charity. This was won in the shadows, made in quiet, and given precisely. You didn't just survive. You developed. You transformed into a version of yourself that the system cannot copy, control, or contain. You paved the way for others to follow in your footsteps. You are evidence that freedom is not given away. It has been accepted that success is measured by change rather than titles, and that the most dangerous thing you can possibly become is an unwavering, unapologetic you. Whether this spoke to something deep within you, whether it kindled a fire, put words to what you've experienced, or reminded you of the power you already possess, don't simply scroll past it. Subscribe if you're tired of playing small and want to start moving with purpose, like if you've ever outgrew the box they attempted to keep you in. Please leave a comment and tell me which aspect of this hurt the most. What truth did you already know but needed to hear spoken aloud? Please share this with the silent disruptors. They misjudge those who plan their next move in quiet. They need this in their hands. This isn't just content. It is a code. And if you're creating something that cannot be overlooked, here is the place for you. Let's increase our effect, even if we travel silently. Stay blessed. Dear viewers, your support through Super Chat and membership is the only source of income that keeps this channel running. If you want me to continue uploading valuable content without delays and to stay motivated in providing you with the best wisdom, I need your help. Every contribution, big or small, makes a huge difference. Feel free to donate and support Pure Wisdom so we can keep growing together. Your generosity keeps this journey alive.
If you're enjoying the content on Pure Wisdom and find value in the messages we share, I encourage you to subscribe. Based on the latest analytics, 93.9% of viewers are watching without subscribing. By subscribing, you not only stay updated with new content, but also support the channel's growth, allowing us to continue spreading wisdom for the chosen ones. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an important message. Let's build this community together.